Emily sat at the kitchen table, the morning light filtering through the sheer curtains, casting soft shadows on the worn wooden surface. A half-eaten plate of toast lay forgotten before her, the butter congealed and cold. Her mind was a tempest of thoughts, swirling around memories of happier times with Jack. She could almost hear the echoes of their laughter from the days before everything changed, the days when love felt invincible. In the next room, their daughter, Lily, played blissfully, her giggles a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside Emily. The sound of tiny feet scampering across the floor brought a bittersweet smile to Emily's lips, yet it quickly faded as she recalled the moment her world began to crumble. "Mommy, look at me," Lily's voice chimed, pulling Emily momentarily from her reverie. The little girl appeared at the doorway, her pigtails bouncing with each enthusiastic step. She was clad in a colorful dress, a picture of innocence. "Very pretty, honey," Emily replied, forcing a smile as she wiped away a tear that threatened to escape. But deep down, she felt a gnawing ache, a fear of what was to come. That night, everything had changed. The memory was seared into her mind. It was a mundane evening, the kind where life felt predictable. Emily had been preparing for bed when she noticed Jack's phone buzzing incessantly on the kitchen counter. Curiosity gnawed at her, and she picked it up, intending only to silence it. But then her eyes caught a glimpse of a message, a flirty exchange that shook her to her core. She could still feel the cold dread settle in her stomach as she read the words, each sentence cutting deeper than the last. "I miss you," the text said, followed by a heart emoji that felt like a dagger twisted in her chest. "Jack," she had called out, her voice trembling, the phone shaking in her hands. When he stepped into the room, the confusion on his face only fueled her anger. "Who is she? What are you talking about?" Jack replied, his brow furrowing as he approached her. "Don't play dumb with me." Emily's voice rose, a mix of hurt and fury. "I saw the messages. You're cheating on me, aren't you?" His expression shifted, and for a moment, the mask slipped. "Emily, please." "Please what?" "Justify your betrayal," she shouted, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm pregnant with our second child, Jack. How could you do this?" The argument spiraled out of control, their voices echoing through the house, drowning out Lily's distant laughter. Jack's attempts at explanation fell on deaf ears as Emily struggled to comprehend the magnitude of his betrayal. Each accusation felt like a blow. Each denial pulled her deeper into despair. Now, back in the present, Emily felt a heaviness in her chest as she prepared for a routine checkup. The sterile smell of the clinic stung her nostrils as she sat in the waiting room, surrounded by other expectant mothers, their faces glowing with joy. She felt like an imposter among them, her heart heavy with uncertainty. "Emily!" The nurse's voice broke through her thoughts, and she stood, her legs feeling like lead as she followed the woman down the hallway. In the examination room, the doctor's calm demeanor did little to soothe her anxiety. "Everything looks good with your pregnancy," the doctor said, reviewing her chart. But as the conversation turned to the implications of her circumstances, Emily felt the walls closing in. "Given the stress you're under, it's important to consider your mental health as well," the doctor continued, concern etched on her face. "You must think about what's best for you and your baby." Emily nodded absently, the words swirling in her mind. As the doctor spoke, she felt an overwhelming sense of entrapment. The love for her unborn child battled fiercely with the betrayal she felt from Jack. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she left the clinic, her heart heavy with the weight of her decisions. Walking to her car, the world felt muted, colors less vibrant, as if her heart had dimmed alongside her spirit. Emily knew she had to confront her pain, but the path ahead felt impossibly unclear. In the days that followed her heart-wrenching discovery, Emily found herself seeking solace in the company of her best friend, Sarah. One afternoon, they met in a quaint cafe nestled in their neighborhood, the soft hum of conversation and clinking of cups contrasting sharply with the turmoil inside Emily's mind. She stared down at her untouched latte, steam rising like her unresolved feelings. Sarah, perceptive as ever, leaned forward, her eyes filled with concern. "Em, you need to talk about this," she urged, her voice gentle yet firm. "You can't just bottle everything up. It's not healthy." Emily sighed, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "I don't even know where to start. I feel like I'm drowning." I should be excited about the baby, but all I can think about is Jack. And what he did. Sarah nodded, her expression softening. It's okay to feel lost. You're going through something monumental. Have you thought about what you want to do? Not just about the pregnancy, but about your life moving forward. Emily looked up, her eyes glimmering with unshed tears. I don't know if I can forgive him, Sarah. The betrayal feels so deep. How do you even begin to rebuild after something like this? Forgiveness isn't about him, Sarah replied, her tone resolute. It's about you finding peace. I went through a rough patch with Mark a few years ago. It took time, but I realized that holding onto my anger was only hurting me. I had to let go for my own sake. Emily considered Sarah's words, feeling a flicker of hope amid her despair. But what if I can't? What if I end up resenting him more? Then take your time. You don't have to rush into anything. Just reflect on what you truly want, Sarah said, placing a reassuring hand over Emily's. You're stronger than you think. You'll figure this out. As they talked, the weight on Emily's chest began to lift, even if just a little. The conversation flowed, punctuated by laughter and shared memories, allowing her to glimpse a future where she could reclaim her happiness. The warmth of their friendship enveloped her like a comforting blanket, and she felt encouraged to explore her feelings further. Later that week, Emily attended a support group meeting for women dealing with infidelity. The room was filled with a mix of nervous energy and palpable strength, the air thick with shared experiences. As the women began to share their stories, Emily listened intently, her heart aching for their pain yet feeling a strange sense of camaraderie. One woman, Lisa, spoke about her journey of healing after learning of her husband's affair. I thought my life was over, she confessed, her voice breaking slightly. But with time, I realized I had to focus on myself. I started to rebuild my life, brick by brick. It wasn't easy, but I found strength I never knew I had. Emily felt inspired by Lisa's resilience. It was a reminder that pain could lead to growth, that there was a way forward even in the darkest moments. As more women shared their stories, Emily absorbed each lesson like a sponge, contemplating her own path. She realized that she could choose how to respond to Jack's betrayal, whether to let it define her or to rise above it. After the meeting, as she walked to her car, a sense of clarity washed over her. Emily stood outside the courthouse, her heart pounding in her chest. The imposing building loomed before her, a symbol of the choices she had to make. She took a deep breath, the cool air filling her lungs, grounding her in the present moment. What am I going to do? She whispered to herself, her voice barely audible. The weight of her decisions felt monumental, pressing down on her shoulders. She envisioned her unborn child, the life inside her, and the love she had for her daughter, Lily. Could she stomach the thought of bringing a child into a fractured family? As she stood there, wrestling with her emotions, the memories of her life with Jack swirled in her mind. The laughter, the dreams, and the love they had once shared all collided with the pain of betrayal. Would she be able to forgive him? Could their family ever feel whole again? Emily's heart raced as she prepared to enter the courthouse, the future hanging in the balance. She closed her eyes for a moment, allowing the gravity of her choices to settle within her. Whatever lay ahead, she knew she had to face it head-on, for herself and for her children. The courtroom was a stark contrast to the warmth of the home Emily and Jack once shared. The air was thick with tension, and the fluorescent lights cast a harsh glare on everything, illuminating the cracks in their relationship. Emily sat rigidly in her seat, her heart pounding in her chest, wrestling with a torrent of memories, joyful snapshots of a life before betrayal. She could almost hear the echoes of laughter, the sweet sound of their daughter, Lily, calling for her. But today, those memories seemed like distant mirages, obscured by the pain of what Jack had done. Across the aisle, Jack sat hunched, his gaze fixed on the floor, his face a mask of guilt and regret. Emily's heart twisted at the sight of him. Where once there was love, there now lingered only a bitter ache. She had envisioned this moment countless times, each scenario playing out in her mind like a tragic film. Yet, nothing prepared her for the reality of facing him in such a sterile, judgmental environment. Order in the court, the judge's authoritative voice cut through her thoughts, snapping her back to the present. She felt the weight of the room's scrutiny as all eyes turned toward her. Taking a deep breath, she rose to her feet, her legs trembling slightly. "Your Honor," she began, her voice wavering, "I stand here today not just as a wife," she paused, swallowing against the lump in her throat, "but as a mother, and as a woman who believed in the vows we made." She glanced at Jack, his eyes pleading for understanding, but she felt a rush of anger. "But those vows were shattered the moment he chose to betray me." The judge nodded, encouraging her to continue. With each word, Emily peeled back the layers of her heart, revealing the raw wounds Jack's infidelity had inflicted. "This isn't just about me. It's about our family. Our daughter deserves better than to grow up in a home filled with deceit. She deserves to feel safe and loved." Her voice grew stronger, fueled by the emotions bubbling within her. Jack shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and she could see the shame etched on his face. "You didn't just hurt me, Jack. You hurt Lily." How can I explain to her why her father isn't the man he pretended to be? Tears brimmed in her eyes, and she blinked rapidly to keep them at bay. "I feel trapped. Trapped between wanting to fight for our family and wanting to protect my children from more pain." The judge listened intently, his expression contemplative. Emily took a moment to collect herself, glancing at the rows of empty seats behind her. She could almost hear the whispers of judgment, the murmurs of what people thought of her for being here, for being vulnerable. Just then, the courtroom door swung open with a suddenness that made everyone turn. A woman strode in, her expression a mix of defiance and determination. "Excuse me. I have something to say." The murmur that rippled through the room felt like a shockwave, and Emily's heart raced. "Who are you?" the judge asked, a note of irritation in his voice. "I'm Lisa," the woman declared, her eyes locking onto Jack. "And I'm here to testify about Jack's affair." The room erupted into chaos. Emily's breath hitched in her throat. She had braced herself for the pain of Jack's betrayal, but this was a fresh wound, one that threatened to engulf her. "What?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the din. "Your Honor," Jack protested, rising to his feet. "This isn't." But Emily could hardly hear him. The shock of Lisa's intrusion sent her spiraling into a whirlwind of confusion and betrayal. She felt the world tilt on its axis, her grasp on reality slipping as the weight of this new revelation crashed over her. "Please," Jack begged, turning to Emily with desperation etched in his features. "It's not what you think." But Emily could only stare at Lisa, who seemed poised to reveal the depths of Jack's deceit. The courtroom faded away, and all she could focus on was the woman who had walked in and turned her life upside down. The two men she had loved, the one who had betrayed her and the one who had been her partner, now seemed like strangers in a cruel twist of fate. The courtroom felt suffocatingly tense as Lisa, the unexpected witness, took the stand. Emily's heart raced, her mind reeling as she prepared herself for what was to come. Lisa, with her cool demeanor and piercing gaze, cleared her throat, drawing the attention of everyone present. As she began to speak, Emily felt like she was being transported back to the moment she first discovered Jack's betrayal. "I'm here to tell you what I know about Jack and his affair," Lisa stated, her voice steady yet laced with a hint of remorse. "I met him at a bar 3 months ago. He told me he was separated and looking for companionship." Every word felt like a hammer striking Emily's heart, shattering the fragile pieces that had just begun to settle after the initial confrontation with Jack. She could see Jack's face, pale and lined with guilt, as he sat across the room, avoiding her gaze. It was as if he was shrinking under the weight of Lisa's revelations. "Jack said he was unhappy in his marriage," Lisa continued. "He made it seem like he was trapped, that you didn't understand him." Each sentence felt like a betrayal layered upon betrayal. Emily wanted to scream, to stand up and confront Jack, to demand answers. But she remained frozen, her body heavy with disillusionment. The judge looked sternly at Lisa. "And how did you know he was married?" he asked, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "I didn't at first. He never mentioned a wife," Lisa replied, her eyes darting nervously. "But when I found out, I was horrified. I thought he was being honest with me. I didn't intend to hurt anyone." The courtroom erupted in whispers, and Emily felt her cheeks flush with anger. Did Jack really think he could weave such a tangled web of lies without consequence? Slowly, Emily's gaze moved to Jack, who looked utterly defeated. He ran a hand through his hair, his usual confidence stripped away like paint from an old wall. She wanted to scream at him, to unleash the storm swirling within her, but instead, she felt an overwhelming wave of sadness wash over her. As Lisa finished her testimony, Emily's heart ached with a mix of betrayal and longing. Jack was still her husband, the father of her children. Despite the hurt, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of the love they had once shared. Jack stood to address the court, his voice shaky as he spoke. "Emily, I am so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was weak, and I let my own problems cloud my judgment." His eyes searched for Emily's, but she turned away, unable to meet his gaze. "Please," he continued, desperation seeping into his tone. "I want to fix this. I want to be the husband you deserve. I'll do anything." Emily's heart twisted painfully. She could see the regret etched across his face, but could she ever truly forgive him? The betrayal felt like a weight so heavy she feared she might drown beneath it. "How can I trust you again?" she finally managed to whisper, her voice barely audible but filled with anguish. Jack took a step forward, pleading, "You have to believe me. I'm committed to change. I love you and our family. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." The judge called for order, but the emotional turmoil in the room was palpable. Emily felt like she was standing on a precipice, teetering between the past she once cherished and a future that seemed so uncertain. As the proceedings concluded, Emily left the courtroom feeling more lost than ever. The walls felt like they were closing in on her, the weight of her decisions pressing heavily on her chest. She stepped out into the bustling city, the noise and chaos a stark contrast to the silence that enveloped her thoughts. Wandering aimlessly, she found herself in a nearby park where children laughed and played, their innocence a bitter reminder of her own lost joy. Emily sat on a bench, her mind racing with questions. What did this mean for her family? What would she choose to do moving forward? The implications of her decisions loomed large, and for the first time, she felt the full weight of her pregnancy pressing against her resolve. As the sun began to set, casting an orange glow over the horizon, Emily took a deep breath, trying to find clarity amidst the storm inside her. She needed to reflect on her life choices, to assess what she truly wanted for her future and the future of her children. The path ahead was unclear, but she knew one thing for certain. She had to confront her feelings, not just for Jack but for herself. With every step she took, she felt the stirring of a newfound determination, a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to navigate through the pain. Emily stepped inside her home, the familiar scent of vanilla and the faint sound of her daughter Lily's laughter wrapping around her like a warm blanket. The moment she crossed the threshold, the weight of the world seemed to lift just a little. Lily came bounding into the living room, her pigtails swinging as she ran. "Mommy, look what I made!" she exclaimed, holding up a crayon drawing of a sun with a smiley face, its rays stretching wide. "Oh, sweetheart, it's beautiful!" Emily knelt down, her heart swelling with love. The innocence in Lily's eyes was a stark contrast to the storm that raged inside Emily. She wrapped her arms around her daughter, feeling the warmth and purity of that embrace. In that moment, she understood that despite her own turmoil, this little girl depended on her. "Can we hang it on the fridge?" Emily asked, her voice steadying as she wiped away the tears she hadn't realized had formed. "Can we? Can we?" Lily bounced on her toes, her enthusiasm bringing a small smile to Emily's face. "Absolutely! Let's do it together." They moved to the kitchen, and as Emily carefully affixed the drawing to the refrigerator door, she marveled at how something so simple could bring her such joy. It was a reminder of what was at stake, the life she had built, and the love that still existed, despite the fractures. Later that evening, Emily found a quiet moment to call Sarah. She needed her friend's wisdom more than ever. "Sarah, can we talk?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. "Of course. How are you holding up?" Sarah's voice was warm and inviting, instantly soothing Emily's frayed nerves. "I don't know, Sarah. I keep going back and forth. I want to be strong for Lily, but I feel so lost. I don't even know if I can forgive Jack," Emily admitted, her voice trembling. "Forgiveness isn't about them, Em. It's about you. You deserve peace, And holding on to that anger will only weigh you down, Sarah replied, her tone firm yet gentle. Have you thought about what you really want? Emily sighed deeply. I just want to feel whole again. I want to feel like I can breathe without the heaviness in my chest. She paused, contemplating her next words. But what if I can't let him back in? What if I'm too angry? Then you focus on healing yourself first. Take your time. You don't have to make any decisions right now, Sarah encouraged. Just think about what you want for you and Lily. That's what matters. Emily felt a flicker of hope as Sarah spoke, as if a light had been turned on in a dark room. You're right. I need to think about what's best for us. After hanging up, Emily sat in silence, letting the weight of Sarah's words settle. She realized that postponing her decision about the pregnancy might be the best course of action. She needed clarity, not just for herself, but for Lily and the future she envisioned for their family. The following morning, Emily decided to confront Jack. They had to talk openly about everything: the betrayal, the pain, and the possibility of rebuilding. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the conversation that would undoubtedly shape their future. As she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair, she caught a glimpse of the woman she was becoming. Stronger, more determined. Mommy, are you going to see Daddy? Lily's small voice pulled Emily from her thoughts. Yes, honey. I am, she replied softly, kneeling down to meet her daughter's gaze. But remember, no matter what happens, I love you more than anything. Lily nodded, her big eyes reflecting trust and innocence. I love you too, Mommy. With that, Emily felt a surge of resolve. She would face Jack, not just as his wife, but as a mother and a woman ready to reclaim her narrative. She was no longer just the victim of his choices. She was empowered to make her own. As she grabbed her coat and headed out the door, Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to embrace whatever came next. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the park as Emily settled on the bench. The laughter of children echoed around her, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within. Jack arrived a few moments later, his posture tense, as if every step he took was laden with the weight of his guilt. He sat beside her, the space between them palpable, filled with unspoken words and emotions that threatened to overflow. Emily, he began, his voice barely above a whisper. I know I don't deserve a moment of your time, but I'm so grateful you came. He looked at her, his blue eyes reflecting a mixture of remorse and hope. She turned her gaze to the ground, watching a few leaves dance in the gentle breeze. I didn't come here for you, Jack. I came for us, for Lily. The mention of their daughter twisted in her heart, reminding her of the innocence that was now overshadowed by their fractured relationship. I understand, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. I know I've put you in an impossible position. I've betrayed your trust, and there's no excuse for that. He paused, searching for the right words. I've been going to therapy. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did, and I'm committed to changing. Emily raised her head, meeting his gaze. Did you love her? The question hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Jack swallowed hard, his expression pained. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. I didn't love her. It was just an escape. I was lost, and I thought that would fill a void. But it didn't. It only made everything worse. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, the remorse etched into the lines of his face. You have to understand, Emily, I never wanted to hurt you. I love you, and I've made the worst mistake of my life. His admission pierced through her defenses, and Emily felt the walls she had built around her heart begin to crack. You say you love me, but how do I know this isn't just words? How do I know it won't happen again? Jack leaned closer, his voice earnest. I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I've shattered that trust. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild it. I want to be a better husband, a better father. I want to earn back your love, Emily. As she listened, she felt a flicker of something she thought she had lost. Hope. What if I can't forgive you? What if this pain is too deep? Then I'll spend every day proving to you that I'm worth it. I'll fight for your forgiveness, no matter how long it takes. His words wrapped around her like a lifeline, and for the first time since the betrayal, she allowed herself to envision a future where they could heal together. "Jack," she said, her voice trembling, "I'm scared. I'm scared of getting hurt again." "I know," he replied softly. "And I'm scared too. But love is complicated. We've built a life together, and I don't want to throw it all away. I want to work through this, together." Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle around them. As she glanced towards the playground, she spotted Lily, her laughter ringing out as she chased after a butterfly. The sight tugged at Emily's heartstrings, a reminder of the family they had created. In that moment, Emily realized that forgiveness was not just for Jack, it was a gift she could give herself. I think I can try," she said, her voice wavering but resolute. "I can try to forgive you. But it won't be easy." Jack's face lit up with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Emily. I promise to do everything in my power to prove that I can be the man you deserve." As they sat there, the sun beginning to set and bathe the park in a warm glow, they shared a fragile moment of reconciliation. Emily reached out, intertwining her fingers with his, feeling a sense of unity that she thought was lost forever. Together, they watched Lily play, a small girl lost in her world of imagination, completely unaware of the struggles her parents faced. In that innocence, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had a long way to go, but for the first time in a long while, they were ready to take that journey together, one step at a time.